Let's do another example with the a minus bx squared form. We want to find the integral of x cubed over the square root 1 minus 4x squared. And this is a problem that you could do directly with substitution without using trig functions, but it takes a little bit of thinking to figure out how to do that. If you'd like to do that and check the solution, you can do that as well, but let's do this using the trig substitution that we've learned here. We have a 1 minus 4x squared giving us problems because it's in a denominator and it's in the square root. And what we would like that to be is 1 minus 1 sine squared, or just sine squared of theta. And that would, of course, be the same thing as cosine squared of theta. Now, that means that our 4x squared is our sine squared. That tells me that x squared is 1/4 sine squared. And my x is 1/2 sine of theta. Now, if that's my x, my dx is easy to find. dx is 1/2 cosine of theta, d theta. And now we can make all of our replacements. In the original, we have x cubed, which we now have substituted in sine of 1/2 sine of theta cubed, all divided by the square root 1 minus 4x squared is cosine squared of theta. And finally, the dx is 1/2 cosine of theta d theta. So let's simplify everything a little bit. I've got a 1/2 cubed and another 1/2. That's 1/16. When all is said and done, I'll pull that out. I've got a sine cubed theta on the top. The square root of a square is the absolute value of cosine on the bottom. And then I have another cosine of theta, d theta. Now I can't cancel the cosines unless I'm positive that cosine is positive. That is, I'm positive that I can get rid of the square root. And the absolute value. And I can get rid of the absolute value because of this silent requirement that theta is between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. And because of the fact that we had a square root involved, x is between negative 1/4 and positive 1/4, otherwise it wouldn't be part of the domain of this function. That's going to be no problem. So our cosine of theta is positive, and in fact it can be canceled with the other cosine. Now I have to integrate sine cubed, and that's going to involve trig integration. And we learned that when you have an odd power on your sine, well, just break one of those signs out of there to get sine theta, d theta. And we're going to need to do another substitution. Here we want to end up with du we want du to equal sine of theta d theta. That way we can get rid of all this. Well, we know that the derivative of sine comes from cosine, so u is equal to cosine. But we have to be careful, right? That's a negative sign. So to fix that, we'll stick the negative on the other side. So now we have negative du is sine of theta d theta. And we'll replace all of that. 1/16 integral. Sine squared, what is that going to be? We'll rewrite that as 1 minus cosine squared of theta, of course. So that gets me 1 minus u squared because of my substitution. Sine of theta d theta becomes negative du. Let's expand out that negative to get 1/16 integral u squared minus 1 du, 1/16 1/3 u cubed minus u plus c. Now u is not what I was asked about in the original problem. Way back up here, I was asked something about x. So I got to get this back into terms of x. So it's going to get me 1/16. 1/3 u is cosine cubed of theta minus u is cosine of theta. Well, where do we go from here? Well, because that doesn't involve x, right? X is part of the original problem, but that's okay. Earlier, we said that cosine squared is equal to 1 minus 4x, so cosine would be the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. And because cosine is positive, we don't have to worry about the plus or minus there. So we'll make those replacements down here. 1/16 times 1/3. So cosine of theta is the square root 1 minus 4x squared. 1 minus 4x squared. It's a square root with a cube, so that's 3/2. So I'll just simply write it like that. Minus cosine of theta is the square root. I'll just write that as a 1/2 power plus c. And if you'd like, you can simplify this just a little bit by multiplying out that 16th and get 1/48. 1 minus 4x squared, 3/2 minus 1/16. 1 minus 4x squared to the 1/2 plus c. And that is the final answer.